here we are. We're very proud of our front porch. So this is what we do, and you probably all kind of put this together as a result of the tour, but I just wanted to kind of tie the bow on it, is that, you know, it's all about designing a study and coming up with the right protocol that makes it possible from a pharmaceutical perspective to do the trial. So, you know, you can come up with lots of fancy trials, but if you can't find a way to be able to deliver the drugs or devices in a uniform and statistically significant way without bias, then it's really hard to do a good drug study. So, all about investigational drugs. Packaging and distribution is our thing. As Julia mentioned, patient safety is another significant aspect of what we're responsible here. And we'll touch on that too. And the regulatory compliance is our DNA. We were compliant with the FDA regs even before the FDA registered us. It's actually kind of funny because we tried for years and years to get registered with the FDA, and every time they turn our application back and said, we don't register federal agencies. What are you talking about? You know, we don't bother. You guys don't need us. And you know, we would keep insisting and say, look, we can read the regulations. They say if you manufacture and package drugs, you're going to have to be a registered drug establishment. It wasn't until some VA investigator found our package at a clinical site, and he says, where did this come from? And it had our name on it, as the regulations require. And it had our address, and it had our phone number. And they show up with their guns drawn. Well, I don't know if they had guns drawn, but they certainly had a gun in his briefcase. And he said, did you guys do this? And I said, well, yeah, come on in. And so when he sat down with the director, which was also Mike at the time, you know, he says, well, you guys have to be registered. This is your drug, you made it. He says, just hold that thought. He came back with a dossier, threw it on the table and said, here's all the correspondence we've had with you. It's about time you showed up. Needless to say, we didn't get registered. So we have Mike in the video said 68,000. We remeasured, it's actually 71,000 square feet. Actually, what we did is we added a mezzanine that includes, we now have a biorepository that we're putting into effect. So that's where the extra space came from. And you got to see a great number of these. The kit assembly, you saw the manufacturing area, even though you couldn't go into the rooms. You saw the warehouse areas, you saw kit assembly, you saw the labs. We have a lot of different specialties in the building, not just pharmacists, and not just quality people, but chemists and other technicians, production folks. So it's staff is about a little over 100 last count, 102, something like that. Here's a statistical slide that you should figure out about. Number of sites, number of trials. Here's our kind of our quality underpinnings. That is that, you know, we are an ISO registered organization. We registered initially under 9001 back in it was 2008. That version. We subsequently found, we stumbled across the ISO 15378, which was in Europe. It was very difficult for the pharmaceutical companies to maintain and to establish quality requirements for their suppliers of packaging material. Because, you know, the packaging material the drug company uses is plastic bottles and, you know, HDPE bottles and thermoforming plastics and things like that. And so for them to be able to go to their suppliers and say, look, we're a GMP drug maker and we have to make sure that your package doesn't do anything to alter our drugs. So how do we know that your packaging is good? And they fought for years over trying to you know, ways that the pharmaceutical industry could get their packagers to meet their requirements. When they'd say GMP, the packagers would say, how do you spell that again? So it was European countries that sponsored the development of this ISO standard. And it's specifically for the good manufacturing practice as it applies to packaging materials. And when I stumbled across this and read it, I said, you know what, this is cool. This is an ISO standard that talks about good manufacturing practices. And all we'd have to do is change, every time they say the word packaging material, just say clinical trial materials. Everything in there virtually applies to us. And so I was able to sell that to the leadership here. They applied it. So we ended up getting certified to that standard by our register as well. And eventually, we hope that we will actually change the standard so that they expand it and say it really applies to anybody that does, that follows good manufacturing practices in the drug business, not just the packaging.
Are you gonna have to jump to ISO 9001:2015? Yes.
Yeah.
We're all,
Everybody needs to do that by 2018.
2018 is the cutoff. Yep.
We're already pretty much down the road to getting ourselves ready for that. And then a few years ago, we also asked our registrar if they would be so kind as to evaluate our compliance, our performance to ISO standard 21500. That's a standard that speaks to project management and following project management principles. As I mentioned, we're an FDA registered drug establishment. It was painful, but we got there. We also subscribe to good clinical practices, which is kind of like the clinical side of CGMP. It's a standard set of regulations that the industry and the FDA refer to as to how you do clinical trials and how you deal with patients and informed consent. And then, as you saw there, we received the Malcolm Waters National Quality Award 2009. And here's who did it all. This is us. At least as a subset of us back in the day. We could never actually get the entire staff in one picture, and it's harder now than it was then. So we've had a long history, and what I'm going for here is the virtual tour. I just wanted to summarize kind of what you saw and then add some things to it that you didn't get to see. So back in the production room, here's a V-shell blender. So this would be where we would actually bring the powders together, and that's the type of a mixer that would mix those powders. Our challenge sometimes is not is finding equipment that's right-sized for our application. So you may not see something, a V-shell like this small in your typical pharmaceutical manufacturing company. I went to one company where we had to certify them as a vendor, and they had one of these that was 3 stories tall. You had to actually climb up, to the stories to fill it. They had to do it with hoses. I never saw a V-shell that big. I can't imagine. I mean, it's just, you can't imagine just the air. You couldn't even be in the room when it was running because of the air the exchange that would flow around that thing. Here's a capsule filler, our old Bosch. We have a new one now that's even faster in section. We were one of the first organizations in the United States to have a Shinogi liquid fill. It was liquid filled capsules using hard gelatin capsules, not soft ones. And it was really quite the conglomeration. It was a special combination of a capsule filler that would use the sort and use hard capsule shells like you would have powder. But then it would fill it with, you use a non-aqueous base, like an oil-based system like vitamin E. Vitamin E drug, actually. Yeah. Julia's trial. And the beauty of this system is that they two were married together so that when you would fill the capsule, then you had control over it, and you could wrap a band of gelatin around the center, and that would seal it so that it wouldn't leak out.
What does hard gel mean?
Say again?
What is hard gel?
They're made out of
it's a normal capsule.
Yeah, your normal
your standard
capsule.
capsule.
You saw them in the room, they're just like those little, when you buy a capsule and it's kind of brittle and stuffed with powder, that's a hard shell capsule.
And it's made from
Normal.
gelatin, just like.
Oh, okay.
It's just gelatin, just less water content makes it harder. So you just
Like
have to.
Tylenol.